First of all, Ira, some takeaways that you have from a week of practice, and then what's the thing that you can't wait to cover as they come back for full pads after spring break?
Just that this team continues to look bigger and stronger and faster than it has. Even last year. Last year they won 10 games, but I think if you look at the roster overall, you see a much bigger, stronger, more developed team physically than a year ago. The things I want to see really going forward, because we only saw one full padded practice, as you said, before they broke for spring break. The things I want to see, how segments respond to competition from day in to day out. One other big thing I really want to see is just kind of how the personnel packages are used. On both sides of the ball. On offense, we've joked about maybe they could use 3 tight ends together. Or maybe they could use 3 or 4 running backs together. We've seen Mike Norvell do that already in his time at Florida State. It's almost like going to an all-you-can-eat buffet and walking away feeling like you didn't get what you really wanted because you got distracted by all the things. I'm wondering, is this spring going to be that all-you-can-eat buffet, or do you think Mike Norvell's going to kind of start honing in on some key packages?
Oh, I got to tell you, Ira, that's my number one concern for the fall is because you have so many things that you can do you get away from an identity? It's kind of a big decision that they have to make because they do have such a variety. If you just look at receiver and tight end, for example, Johnny Wilson is not the same player as Ja'Kai Douglas. So they have roles that they're going to fill that are different. But then there are a lot of dudes in the middle, especially with Micah Pittman out. Winston Wright could line up in the slot or outside. Jaheim Bell at tight end can line up as basically a fullback or an H-back, a wide receiver, or on the end of the line. Kyle Morlock similarly. So they've got a big decision on their hands of how they want to handle this and whether they want to keyhole guys and give them roles or allow them to grow across the entirety of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, another example at running back is, now that you've got the combination of size and power that you have with Keziah Holmes and Trey Benson, now does Lawrence Toafili really become more of just kind of that pass catching option, not necessarily part of the main running back room? You also have Rodney Hill behind him and CJ Campbell behind him. Do you kind of fan off Lawrence Toafili into more of that receiving role, which he's very good at? But then what happens if you do have an injury or two, and then you want that experience back, Lawrence Toafili, to come back in? Is he kind of out of that routine? So there's a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made that again, these are good problems to have. You'd rather have this problem than be scratching your head about who do we even have as an option. But I do think that's something that they're going to have to keep an eye on because you do want to have an identity. There's the philosophy a lot of defensive coaches have is trying to get their best 11 players on the field at the same time, not necessarily the best nickel back and the best corners and the best safeties and the best defensive ends, but the best 11 football players, getting them on the field and then figuring out where they can play. That is a philosophy some coaches make. And I think there's a risk when you have so many talented guys that you're trying to get the ball to, trying to keep involved, of where you get in situations where you too often don't have your best 11 players on the field.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier for defense because what an offense or what an opponent does week to week can help dictate what you have to do and counter with. You're countering. You're not setting the tone. On offense, it's a blank canvas. You can set the tone and you can do whatever it is that you want. And to me, that's the thing I want to watch in the running back room, Ira, as we get back and into full pads day after day. I want to see if there are roles carved out for a Keziah Holmes versus a Rodney Hill behind Trey Benson, or if they're allowed to practice with the ones, with the twos, and the threes in all situations, and then they make decisions from there. Because that group, there is variety, but there's a whole lot of talent. Toafili is somebody that we have to remember as we, discuss the running back room, just because of, he doesn't do one thing brilliantly, but he does so many things valuably. It's going to be interesting to see how they juggle all that because there's so many different skill sets. And just like you've seen, I've seen it too, Ira, in practice, everybody takes a turn standing out in that running back room. So it's a great problem to have, but it's something you have to sort out and have an answer for.
Yeah, and then even on the other side of the ball defensively, one of the other things I want to see next week when they come back from spring break is some of the personnel groupings on that side of the ball from a defensive line standpoint. They've got not just a lot of talent and a lot of bodies on that defensive line, but there's some versatility there. And I think a lot of us are curious about how do you get the best guys on the field together. Jared Verse obviously is your best pass rusher. Fabian Lovett is a very good defensive tackle. Daryl Jackson has kind of blown everybody's doors off in the first week he's been part of spring practice. But you know, Gilbert Edmond has come on, Patrick Payton, Derek McClendon, Dennis Briggs. Dennis Briggs is the Lawrence Toafili of the defensive line because you kind of always forget about him, but he's a solid college football player and can be really good at times. And so I'm curious to see if we see any tendencies of who plays with who, which defensive tackles are together, which ends are together, which tackles and ends are together. You know, Adam Fuller threw out the idea of going with some 5-man fronts. There's a lot of things that I think they're going to experiment with. And again, I think that as we go on through the spring, it's going to be fun to see the tinkering that goes on there.
Yeah, that's the fun part about what this spring camp could be too, because the offense now has enough bodies to create different looks for the defense to practice against, and vice versa. So, you know, you could roll out a 3 tight end set or a 6 offensive line on balance look. Florida State was awfully thin last year at offensive line, but Mike Norvell has shown a propensity to want to do something along those lines. Well, okay, let's script that out, practice it, scheme it so that Adam Fuller can see if he has an answer for if an opponent counters with a similar look that FSU can. Does it make your head spin a little bit? Sure, but this is the best part about spring is basically you're mad scientists. You go into the laboratory and you see how many different things you can do well. I guess it's a long way of saying the big challenge is, okay, are we going to do things to prove we can do them or because we can do them well and this is what we're about? That's what they're going to have to find out.
You know, again, especially on defense, I'm a strong proponent of who are your best 11 football players and find a way to get them on the field. And if you find yourself out of if you're letting the offense dictate terms to you to where you're not playing your best 11 players, that may be something you need to kind of revisit.
We've learned a lot of things through 1 week of camp. They're a larger team. They're a deeper team. They've got more top-end skill across the board. But we also learned things on Warchant TV, like Dennis Briggs is the Lawrence Toafili of the defensive line. That's so true. It just is. Next Tuesday, the 21st, is when they return to the fields. It's full pads, no more acclimation. It's full go time. We've got you covered here at Warchant TV. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. For the managing editor, Ira Schoffel, my name is Tom Lang. We'll see you next time on Warchant TV.